Okay, so we're going to be looking at Mark chapter 9, verse 2 to 13. The Transfiguration. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain where they were all alone. There he was transfigured before them. His clothes became dazzling white, whiter than anyone in the world could bleach them. And there appeared before them Elijah and Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what to say. They were so frightened. Then a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and a voice came from the crowd, "This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked round, they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. They kept the matter to themselves, discussing what rising from the dead meant. And they asked him, "Why did the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first?" Jesus replied, "To be sure, Elijah does come first and restores all things. Why then is it written that the Son of Man must suffer much and be rejected? But I tell you, Elijah has come, and they have done to him everything they wished, just as it is written about him." This is an interesting passage. It is one of the passages that I probably understand the least in the whole Bible. It's called the Transfiguration, and I don't know what that means. And that is okay. It is okay to not know and understand everything. That's why we have Uncle Google. That's why we have friends like my friend Sean DeToy, who when I don't understand things, I email him and I say, "Hey Sean, what is a transfiguration?" And he tells me and I go, "Oh, figures. Sean Sidley," or something like that. It's okay to not understand everything. It's good to try and understand the bits you don't. But let's see what we can take out of this passage. I think Jesus tells them they have this weird experience, and Jesus says, "Don't tell anyone about this." And my personal view of this, reading it now, is that he's like, you guys aren't going to understand what the heck happened here. So I don't want to be here when you start telling people what happened, because they're going to look at you a bit strangely, and I don't want them thinking, yeah, we're with him or something like that. Probably not his intention, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, when these guys start saying weird things have happened, I don't want to be around. What's interesting is the part they don't understand is what rising from the dead means. I mean, they've just seen Elijah and Moses appear with Jesus, voices from heaven, and they're like, "What do you think rising from the dead means?" And they don't get that. It's like rising from the dead. It seems pretty explanatory to me. So there's 2 things I think that I'll take from this passage. The one is Peter, and I think Peter gets a bad rep. And I think that because I like to compare myself to him, and obviously I'd like to have a better rep. But we often go, Peter, he's the guy that sinks when he steps on the water. Peter, he's the guy that cut off the soldier's or the servant's ear in the garden. Peter, he's the guy that Jesus rebukes now for not understanding it or whatever. But the one thing I like about Peter is that he's a man of action. So even though he doesn't fully understand all the time what he's doing, and so it helps to understand better, it helps to ask questions and figure out what we're doing better, but he's always the guy of action. He was the guy who stepped out of the boat. He's not the 11 disciples waiting in the boat. And so he tried. He gave it a shot. He stood on water. He walked for a little bit, and then he darted, and Jesus pulls him up. When Jesus rebukes him and says, "Get away from me, Satan," it's come from just after Peter going, "You are the Christ. You are the Son of God." Like, Peter took chances, even like chopping the oak's ear off in the garden, like he's trying to protect Jesus. And so good intentioned action, sometimes it's wrong, so learn a bit, add wisdom and knowledge, things like that. But I think the fact that Peter acted was really cool. And I think one of the big problems in the church is that a lot of people just do nothing, especially kind of when injustice is there. We talk about it, we gossip about it, but we don't change things. We don't step up. We allow someone else to be the voice. We moan about it quietly to ourselves, but we won't be the people of action. And so maybe that's something we can take from this passage, at least offer to make tents for Elijah and Moses. Maybe it's a dumb thing, but at least Peter's like, "Hey, I want to do something. I want to do something. What can I do? Let me try this." The second part of this passage is verse 7. Then a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and a voice came from the cloud, "This is my son whom I love. Listen to him." And maybe that's the whole heart piece of this message. Like, it's showing Jesus' top 3 disciples just like he's kind of a big deal. And so Elijah and Moses, pulling the significance of the Old Testament, pulling the significance of the fact that this story is a lot bigger than just Jesus' life. This is the story that has gone on since creation. It involves Moses, it involves Elijah, the prophets. And so kind of connecting all those aspects of the story. But the voice from heaven that came when Jesus was baptized, once more coming down and just affirming Jesus, saying, "Hey, this is my son. I give him the thumbs up. Listen to him and do what he says." And I think that is that is what I take out of it. Just maybe also the fact that Jesus trusted the disciples with stuff that he knew they wouldn't fully understand, that he knew he was going to send the Holy Spirit and that would help a little bit. But it was okay that they didn't know exactly what was going on. He chose them. He knew they'd get it wrong many times, but he still gave them a chance, and he shared important stuff with them. He allowed them to be in the dark, but to carry on following him. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. So it doesn't matter I don't understand the whole passage. There's some cool bits we take from it. Go chat to other people, read commentaries, and I'm sure there's lots more we can learn from it. But those were some of the things I got today.